see again what you want. I don't want you to even front.
Hello, and welcome to Conversations with Rev G. I am Reverend Grenetta Mason, aka Rev G, and I'm here every Monday night bringing you spiritual conversations. Each Monday, I bring on different guests from different walks of life with different perspectives. And we talk about spirituality from a practical perspective. How does spirituality work in your everyday life? We like to leave you with some tips that can support you in creating your own personal spiritual toolkit, is what I like to call it. So we talk about spiritual practices that you can use whenever you need to shift. Sometimes we get into spaces where just a little quick breath or prayer or meditation or some spiritual practice can help you. So it is really exciting when I bring different guests on who have gone through many different spiritual paths, spiritual walks. And tonight I have a really special guest, Wesley Morris. And Wesley is a pastor, he's a facilitator, a mentor, and a community organizer. I'm excited to have him here tonight. And as you know, I'm here to help you find joy and live your best life with grace and ease. And if you want to know more about how to live your best life, you can find me on Instagram as Rev Grenetta and on Facebook and YouTube as Reverend Grenetta Mason. So let's have a great time with Pastor Wesley tonight. Hey, Wesley, how are you?
Hey, good evening. Good evening to you, Reverend G, and everyone that's listening. I'm so pleased and excited to be here tonight.
Yes. Right, tonight. I'm excited to have you here too. Wesley and I have just done a couple of little presentations together, and it was just so great. I was like, come to my show. I'm excited because we had a great conversations, and it was great energy being with him. So tell people of who you are and what you're doing now.
Thank you. And I do agree. It was great working together and just sharing space and energy. But currently, I'm a pastor. I'm a senior pastor. I want to start off with that in Greensboro, North Carolina, a church called Faith Community Church. Always and will forever be affiliated with the Beloved Community Center, where I came and grew up in terms of like knowing about community and becoming a community organizer and some of the ways to be helpful to your community. I'm also a mentor. I find that to be an important role that started probably me as being an uncle and being an uncle when I was young. So shout out to all my nieces and all my nephews. A lot of love, a lot of lessons through them. And so I really take that part of life seriously. And I'm also a facilitator. That's one role that I've done with you, helping conversations happen. People don't always just organically know how to talk with each other, especially when it's across difference or there's some challenges in the room where you're trying to explore an idea. That can be a challenge for a lot of people, but that's one of my gifts that I like to bring out, helping people have conversation, think through difficult issues and talk across difference to come to common ground. So that's what I am.
Well, that's nice. That all sounds very important, right? And it sounds very exciting, right? I say important. I know you mentioned that you were a senior pastor, and this is about spiritual conversations. And we do also get into current events and what's happening and how that relates to us creating our own spiritual life, right? So I know now you're a senior pastor. Give us your little journey from when you were a little kid, right? I always tell them, tell me how you were when you were a little kid, right? And then walk me through how you got to right now, Pastor.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a good question. I grew up in the church. My mother was over the music ministry. My father was a deacon in the church. And I also had three older siblings. And so, like, I was the baby coming up. So I caught all of that. And I grew up, I was in the choir. Our choir name was Angels Without Wings. I always thought that was like one of the coolest names. Uh, but I was also a usher. And, standing up on your post, and I was the kid that I was the kid going like this while the preacher was preaching, and then my parents would look at me, and I have to. But I really did enjoy my church experience growing up, and I think growing towards being in a different role in ministry, I had the opportunity to do a youth reflection. I remember that I was asking all the questions in Sunday school, and then they said, "Well, you have a chance to speak to the church." And so I'm a youth, I'm a teenager. And I go up there with my little sheet of paper, and I read my part, So that was just a really part of my growth and development. And then, as I got older, I did find the role of being a youth pastor at this church, Faith Community Church. And so, as I just developed, there was this interesting time period where it was that I was in the church, but I also started traveling and started reading and started having some new ideas come in. And I felt very relaxed, I guess, in the sense of being able to encounter new ideas and other faiths and other religions. I had to break some ice, at first, but I did get to grow into some other forms of worship and spirituality that really grew from my understanding of my Blackness, of my history. And so through all of that, and I have probably two more stages that I tell you. I want to give you my whole biography tonight, but after becoming a youth pastor, I did take time in seminary for training and studying. And so I was a chaplain at a hospital, Harlem Hospital. That was another major impact in my life. And then I moved back to North Carolina and really had the honor to serve with Reverend Nelson Johnson, Reverend Lucretia Middleton, just a lot of names that my elders, and I have to, give them thanks for a lot of the, this path opening up through what they made for me. And so now I'm a young senior pastor in Greensboro, North Carolina. And we have service every Sunday and we have Bible study. And it's been very rewarding, and I'm glad I can be a help to this community.
And when I look, it's a Christian church.
It's a Christian non-denominational church, and but like I said, there were parts of my life where I began to understand that other forms or other ways of approaching God or spirit, or folks may say the universe. At the core and at the root of it, if folks operate from love and really wanting to, have the best for the other, I think that we can find common ground. That was the basic, understanding that I got when I started to travel and experience and sit in, they call them ashrams, where we learn meditation, or where I got to travel to another country and sit with those who are doing African-based spiritualities in Brazil or in Cuba. And I just got to learn and be with people. So I did start with reading and abstract ideas and watching little YouTube videos, but I did get the opportunity to really deepen my own faith and my tradition. And the further down I went, the further I went in terms of that love that I found through Jesus, I was able to actually open myself up to the unconditional love that I found, in those scriptures. And so I began to tap in. I call it tapping in. Some of my friends, we say that, can you tap in real quick? And we just have discussions around spirituality. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I know, talking about Jesus and the way, the structure, as I think about all the other religions and how you've been able to study all of them and then bring that into the whole Christian Jesus perspective, because where you say the universe, because Christianity tends to be like really strict, right? And it's a certain way, right? And being able to open it up and create it in such a way that people really get it. Because, I talk to a lot of people and they, when I was young, I questioned the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And it just didn't make sense. And so then they walk away because it just didn't make sense, right?
Yeah.
So to be able to have it all make sense, right, is what I'm looking for too. When I talk about spirituality from a practical point of view, how does it really work in your everyday life? And how do we get people to that place of not putting it like Sunday, right? And
yeah, go get your suit. Go get your suit ready. Get your hat. Get your hat.
So get ready, right? So do you have a lot of, so it's interesting when I think about what your congregation is made up of as a young minister, right? What is your congregation made up of, and how are you engaging younger people to stay and come to the church?
Yeah, it's interesting. We have a multiracial, inclusive, welcoming, and affirming church. And since I've been there, I mean, we have elders and we do have a lot of youth. It's a small church. We say we're a small church with a big mission. But another aspect, I think, is that if you are to come to our church, and if you hang around long enough, you're going to be in some understanding, or at least some movement for justice. You're going to be understanding that is a critical part of how we engage with the gospel and we engage the world. And so we have this saying, and it was not only a saying, it was a school, but the word and the world, right? How do these things meet at an intersection? And so I don't want to be so heavenly minded that I'm no earthly good is a saying, and so we very much so understand that people meet me before they necessarily meet my religion.
Yeah.
And so I'm an ambassador of my community. I'm an ambassador of my neighborhood as much as I am an ambassador of the beliefs that I say I believe in. And so I really try to base it in, like you're saying, like a really practical, like, do you take time to acknowledge the humanity of somebody else? Do I, do I actually look people in their eyes? And if somebody's talking to me, do I take the time to truly hear the heart of what they're saying? And then just the basic question, am I being helpful or am I being harmful in this space? And if I'm being harmful, do I know how to ask for what it takes to repair that? And so I try to break down some of the spiritual questions that are can be large and there's like a gazillion books written about them, and try to break it down into just like, how do you show up? And how do you show up, and how do you make the space able for, to be able to hold other people? And so I think we have a garden program. We have something called Healing Ground that kind of stretches us to think beyond a strict kind of order of laws and rules that you have to abide by, and really go by this rule of community, community and growth and development. These are questions that are in the gospel, they are in the teachings. And at the same time, you can find them right on the front doorstep of somebody's house. You can find it on the basketball court. That's where I learned a lot of my lessons about respect and, on the basketball court. And so if you're able to speak those languages, which is basically in the book of The Alchemist, the soul of the world, if you feel like you have been filled with a kind of love, a kind of spirituality that is significant and meaning and purposeful, we should be able to drop you down on any place on the world.
Right.
And be able to express and show love. I mean, I do believe that there's other questions in it, that make life what it is. But at the basic, I just try to relate to other people.
Yeah, that is really, really important. And I like what you said about just being able to connect to people. And it brings to mind love, right? If you can love and be compassionate with people, that will bring about a whole different world if we could practice that.
Reverend G, there's this definition of love that I did a lot of thinking and writing about. And it was based in the idea that you can extend yourself for the benefit of somebody else, right? You're willing to do that. You're willing to extend yourself for the help and benefit of somebody else or yourself. And when I say extend, like, you're willing to give up the ego that prevents us from necessarily sometimes like really caring about the growth and development of somebody else. That's when your purpose, your gift can come out and it can really glow. Like you have a glow, Reverend G. When we did that call together, I'm telling you, I got to tell you this one moment. Like we were going through it, we were riding through it. It was cool. We were catching the moments. But you did this laughing yoga, I think it was. And it just cracked the whole Zoom call. Like it cracked everything. And I realized that is part of, one of the many gifts that you have. Right. And so it's like that gift was used in love and service to somebody else. Like, you keep that to yourself. Just laugh at your movie. But you said, no, let's have some joy here. And so I really I think about gifts like that. You can be the greatest gardener in the world. You can be the greatest trumpet player or drummer, but how does that gift move forward another generation? How does it give ease and peace to those who are older and your elders? How does it, how does it pull something out of somebody else that is helpful to them? And so
it's interesting too. I think about, we all have those gifts and talents, and sometimes, just recognizing what they are and how you can serve with those. Sometimes we look for this big thing that we need to do and this big way that we need to serve, when simply, I like what you said, just making people laugh is a way of serving and making it light, rather than looking for what's this great contribution I'm about to make to the world.
Yeah, that's
right.
real. No, that's real. Like, if you think about it, I'm glad you said that. That helped me because I've been to, we've been to concerts maybe, we really enjoyed somebody who's really, really good and really talented, and there's a space for that. But like at the end of that, like I might go home and just, call one of my friends who listens, or I might just come home and play checkers with one of my nieces or nephews, and that'll make my day, and so it's like you do have the height of what your performance or what your gift can do in the world. And sometimes the world recognizes it, sometimes it doesn't, but my duty and my responsibility is to get that right, get my gift right, lined up, and get it lined up with those that I would call my neighbors. And so, yeah, like, I can experience some really out of this world experiences, but at the end of the day, I want to come to a place where I feel nurtured and I know people care about me. I know that I'm able to, be in the camp, as Bob Marley says, and know that there was no war. That's one of my favorite quotes.
In the camp, who are some of the people who have inspired you along your ministry walk, right? And what were some of the things that that you've taken from them that really are supporting you now?
Wow, that's a real question. I would say a lot of names come to mind, and I'll say a few of them. One is Baba Antonio Carpenter. He passed on, but he just came to my mind when you said that. He was the gentleman, the first man that taught me about meditation and Tai Chi. Went to this little off the map kind of camp up in Virginia. And we have these weekends where I took about 15 of my friends. We were in school together at a historically Black college university, North Carolina A&T. And so all of us, we went up to this one spot. And we get there, we like, where are we? First of all, like we meet this man and his friends, and, my Ayo, Kendi, who taught us about breathing work. And we're up there, in this land, and we moving, learning Tai Chi, and he's teaching us to close our eyes and lay on our back and visualize what it looks like for the clouds to go, but not to be attached to them, or to like imagine still water as a practice for you to meditate. So Baba Antonio, Sister Soldier. Oh my goodness, I got so much love for Sister Soldier, her voice in the world, her books, her writing in the world. But I got to hear her voice when I was a bit younger, and that made a big difference. Her lectures, Fred Hampton, Tupac Shakur, the list goes on, Che Guevara, like Fidel. There's just so many different names. But, in my life, in my personal life, I would say Reverend Nelson Johnson, Miss Joyce Johnson, my predecessors at the church, and at the Beloved Community Center. They have taught me so much about what it means to care for the community and be a part of the community. My oldest sisters, I got to shout them out, Edie, India, my brother Wayne, my parents, WJ and Carol. And my family, you know, I have a lot of cousins, a lot of uncles and aunts. And so when you say those, like, who comes to mind? Like, that's what starts coming up. Like some friends I grew up with, the twins, and you know, hopefully they get to see it.
Your life, people,
Shouting out
different
everybody.
people, different people that you've encountered throughout your entire life. They've had an impact. When I look at one picture of you, I always think of Michael Beckwith, right?
Oh wow!
And it's something about, I don't know, I just kind of put y'all together, but that's just me, right? When I saw that picture of you, I was like, oh wow, you know, that's the kind of energy that I got. But one of the things that came up for me is when you talk about community and you call it a community, everybody's looking for community, right? It's like one of the things when people they want community, they get together, they want to form community, you know, like the Momentum community. You went to Momentum, that's a huge community, right? And then you talk about community building, and your church is a community. Talk about some of I know you've done some other community building projects. Can you talk about a couple of those projects that you've done?
Yeah, I think this will show up in some of the mentoring work that I've done, being able to be a partner to seeing organizations develop over time. Like even when I was in university, like I think about being a part of the history club, or I think about being part of, you know, after I graduated, the Poor People's Campaign. And like, I just start thinking about these opportunities where these are different communities that I've been a part of. And one thing that is a theme in all of those is, one, I felt comfortable. I felt at ease. I felt a certain sense of self that I could express whatever it is that I had going on, and it would connect with those that were around me. And that makes a big difference, because community to me is about being able to speak and also being about to listen, given the opportunity to see and to also be seen. And so I just think there's that kind of call and response that comes out of community. And so, you know, there's been communities that I've been a part of that are travel communities. You know, we have a couple of units where one of my good friends, Jada, she set up a program where we're able to take high school youth to Barbados, and they were able to experience what it's like to see that leadership. And so when I say groups and community, I'm really thinking about how can we expand and open ourselves up to community being defined towards us. I do keep a basic definition, but I realize that when I meet you, I'm meeting your community. I'm meeting who made you who you are. And so I don't want to limit and put a box on it. But if I can meet you and just relate with you, community grows. And so my church community is definitely a major part of, you know, what it means to be in the community with. I see them all the time. We see each other. We know our strengths. We know some of my weaknesses. You know, we know each other. But I think it's important in a world like this, where so many people are starting to get excluded. So many people are starting to be, you know, treated as if they're disposable. You know, and that's not okay. You know, as you know, everybody gets to go. And so we're gonna open up and say that, you know, in Greensboro, at least, we want to be part of that. You know, that's what we want to do.
Yeah. I know you had mentioned that your community church, the basis of it is social justice. The basis of it is justice, right? Talk a little bit about that, because there's so much going on now around justice, right? And talk a bit about that.
There's this sense of dignity, worth, and value, right? Those are three words. That there's a dignity that we have that is intrinsic to our being. Like we are really, truly, like, worthy. We have worth. We have value. And so when those things come together and you live in a society that is structured in a way where it causes, not only it doesn't just happen, but it causes, like, folks to really be misused, exploitation, poverty, systemic racism, military violence, all these things are part of a system. And that system lands heavily on people. And so when we're talking about those who are most impacted and unfortunately harmed by that system, it's not only those that are hurt by it, but it's really the people that are causing the hurt, like the people that are signing laws and creating policy that exploits, people who definitely who have and bear the image of the creator on them. When you use, the power, the leverage that you've been given in this life to do that, you're also hurt. And so, our questions of justice really show up in our activism sometimes. We do join and we support marches and protests and things of that nature, but we also try to support a better world. And that starts inside with us, and so we have to check ourselves. We have to, work on it all the time. We're definitely not perfect. We don't say we model, perfection, but we do model striving, and I think striving is something that can be better than nothing. Can be better than not doing it at all. So, there's the Poor People's Campaign. I mentioned that Dr. William Barber, like try to actively join, and we definitely support all those initiatives. And there's a history, there's a history in Greensboro of activism and being able to take a stand for community. Yeah, there's such a, I could run so many different histories from the ANT4, the sit-in movement in 1960 on February 1 to this very present day. There have been really important conversations of justice held in Greensboro. I mean, I'm sure every city, but I'm in Greensboro and I've been part of that community.
And seeing those different changes, right? When you were talking about the Poor People's Campaign and the different organizations that your church support, I also know that you work with a nonprofit. Tell us about your nonprofit and how you support grassroots organizations.
Yeah, so one group, I work with is called Southern Vision Alliance, and they are a group, and we are a group that really takes the opportunity to be what we call an intermediary. And you can think about it as an in-between. There's grassroots organizations, there's groups of folks who get together and are doing like really good work in their community, but sometimes they don't get the funding. Sometimes they don't get the support, the infrastructure support. They don't get the kind of technical assistance that other organizations that are much larger get. And so we're in the position where we're able to either fiscally sponsor and like represent what a 501c3 could be for some of these organizations and people, and at the same time help them grow and give them the space. When you were trying to, as a young person, I know this because I was in school trying to like pull everything together, using my refund check to support, a movie night on campus. But like, if we had resources, it would alleviate some of the stresses that come along with building out organization, and then be able to, you never know what you could do then. So in this position, I try to do the things that I wish were done for me when I was a younger organizer. I try to turn around the lessons quicker. And I think that that's a benefit in life. If you're able to get into a position where you're able to answer some of the questions that you had when you were younger, and you're able to give back to your younger self, I think you have to do that to the maximum. You have to do it to your best ability. I've been blessed with the opportunity to be able to sit in a chair where I get to, reach out to organizations and say, how can we serve you? How can we be of service? How can we help? How can we take some of the stresses off of what you have to do so that you can do what you do better? And so we really reach out to grassroots organizations, and we ask groups to apply, for funding. That's one of our roles that we play as well, in trying to move resources, which, is really stolen wealth, honestly, in this country. A lot of these foundations are built on stolen wealth. And so we try to do our best to be good stewards and, transition that to communities that are in need.
That's really good. And it's important to really support those organizations that are on the ground doing the work and really, right.
I know what that's like, I know. And then trust too, you gotta be, you have to show in some sense that you're worthy of being trusted, because there are a lot of, like, how there's scams out there. There's people that want to take advantage of you. There's folks that lack kind of integrity, and so how do you represent your truth? How do you represent your honesty? How do you represent, the work that you really want to do? How do you do that and build quality relationships with folks? How do you build on, like, it's not just like a transactional relationship. It's like, oh no, I'm in this with you. I'm in the struggle with you. How do you, make that work? And so since I've been there, that's been a really good part of that work. Before that, like I said, and I'm still always going to be doing this other work of community organizing as a, somebody who sees different pockets of community where I can help, or I see different aspects of questions that are being wrestled with, because I've experienced them myself. I've been a part of sit-ins. I've been a part of racial profile. I've been a part of police accountability and labor struggles and things like that, even at my age. And so since I've been able to see those things, how can I, give that back?
Yeah, that's really important, to reach back. Because when I think of the youth, right, and what can we reach back to give them? How can we? Because people say, "Oh, I would tell my 21-year-old self this." Well, tell a 21-year-old, right?
I'm so glad you said that. That's real. That's real. That's real. That's
How
real.
do we really support them, right? Because I remember a few years ago, I was reading this Christian book about the youth leaving the church, right? And so, I know you have a small church, but how are you keeping your youth engaged? And have you seen this exodus of youth from Christianity in particular? This one book I read, and it was talking about how younger people, they don't believe in they don't believe in God as community more, like us, but they have a one-on-one relationship. So they don't believe in it as, how is he going to help this whole community? But it's not totally rejected. So has been your experience?
It's we at our church, like, we make opportunities. Like I said, when I grew up, I had a youth reflection, right? I had little parts and plays, right? And that was good for me. It was good to see that I was affirmed and I was okay, and that people believed in me. And so, we do some of the same things. We have a Christmas program before they dress up, they have the little staff and they do the towel around their head. And they recite lines every Sunday. We say, what is your favorite scripture? There's a moment where we teach through a PowerPoint. Our Deacon Sabrina actually is a wonderful teacher. She actually walks folks through, a lesson each week. But I'm saying all of that as a basis. Like, that's the basics. That's the foundation, right? After that, you got to actually figure out, because this is a whole new era. Over the last year, we've had Zoom church for over a year. We've had Zoom kind of teach-ins, and so we've had to be as creative as we can. We had a really great spoken word night on 2 Thursdays, the third Thursday in December. And so we try to think of ways that you can, take the expressions that are current and contemporary and merge them with the practice that you're doing now. Even in my sermonizing, I might drop a little lyric that they might understand that nobody else understands. I try to wrap the lessons in a real situation, because honestly, Reverend G, I've had conversations, and I mean, these are real conversations. That a young brother called me and said, I don't want to go to church because I don't want to know God. If God let this happen to me, if he let this happen to me and my family, do you know what I've been through? Like, this is the conversation I was having. And I didn't even come with an answer. Like, I didn't come with, well, you got to do right. That's not the response. The response is, I see you, and I'm sorry that has been your experience. Let me show you and share with you something different. Because when I got tired, Reverend G, how I even came to this church, it was that I was tired. I was spiritually, emotionally, physically exhausted. And I found myself in the back of this church. And I heard the pastor, Reverend Josh talking. And I promise you this happened. I closed my eyes during altar call, right? I closed my eyes. I was like, I don't even want to be here. I was smelling like all of yesterday.
I didn't want to be here.
But I wound up in the front. I was like, how did I get up here? And my feet carried me when my whole body didn't want to go. And so, but I was told, he told me, he said, we got to rewire some of the things that you thought about yourself, and that you thought about spirit. You thought spirit was going to punish you, but spirit just really wanted you to come, and then he told me a scripture that changed my life. He said, "Come unto me, all ye who are heavy laden and burdened down with care." And I was like, "Oh, that's me."
Yeah.
I will give you rest, and I will give you rest for your soul. So, and it's not all in the scripture. It's how you relate with people. It's how you talk with people. And if people know your track record outside of, the 2 hours on a Sunday. So I try to represent.
Right. And I think that it's a different messaging now than when the way they taught us when I was younger. It's very different. You can't use the same methods also because we couldn't even question it either. There was no space to say, well, I'm upset at God, or what about Jesus? Right? You couldn't. There was no space for it.
Right.
And I think that there is, and maybe it comes from being open and understanding other religions, that the language of Christianity is open up, right? And that if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, you're not necessarily going to hell, right?
Like that. I'm not gonna be the judge on that. Like, I'm telling you,
So a lot of and religions are exclusive, like Judaism is Judaism, Christianity is Christianity, right? But and I like the Buddhism and the Hinduism. They seem to like flow across, right? I'm sure that each one has its own place and everything. But and that's why I say when I want to talk about spirituality from a practical point of view, because I was born Jesus Christ, Christian, raised, all of that, right? And I do remember at a point realizing that I was like confused and I was breaking down. And I was like, but I knew it was spiritual. I just knew it. I knew it wasn't mental, but there was my spiritual base was just gone, right?
Yeah.
And at that point, I got a spiritual advisor, Sister Amy Bell Alatunji, saved my life, right?
I had saved our lives over and over again, right?
Because, and I was so happy that I knew that it was a spiritual thing that I was missing. So I studied. I studied Christianity the same way, from science of the mind, unity.
Yeah, I read that too.
Right. I swear, I was like, I read all those books like I was getting a master's degree in spirituality, right? And I studied and I had journals and I did so much work, right, to support myself in finding a spiritual base that really resonated with me. So it's been, we go through all these journeys. Did you do a Course in Miracles? I did a Course in Miracles for a whole right.
Everything. There was so many, like I would say, interventions where I was close to not continuing like my spiritual journey. Like I was shutting down, right? Or like a contradiction showed up. I remember I stood in my best friends, they're good brothers, and they were Muslim brothers. And I'm in their front yard as a Christian. This was like before I had that openness. And they were like, we see you've been studying Malcolm X and things like that, but if he didn't believe how you believe, did he go to hell? And in my mouth, I'm saying, if he didn't give his life to, if he didn't do it how I did it. And then they said, well, you studying Gandhi. Gandhi, he did a couple of good things, you think he went to hell? And I'm like, if he didn't do it how I. And then they hit me with the most practical question. They said, well, what about us? We're your friends, but we have a different religion. Do we go to hell? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah. And then I said, I can't do this. Something ain't right. But they did that in love. They were just a bit older, and I would say, other times when I was going through a surgery and preparing for that and I was in recovery, that whole big the Science of the Mind book, like that big.
Yeah.
I sat there, I poured over it. I'm taking notes,
Mhm.
about healing and about healing myself and having the kind of thoughts that I need to have from day to day. And even where I'm at this stage, I'm still thinking back, and I'm like, maybe I needed that at that certain stage. Maybe I needed those kind of like restrictions at that certain age. And, at
Exactly.
this age, I'm able to experience this. And so
And
as
you,
a teacher, now
yeah.
I have to be wise. I don't want to just lay all this out on somebody who's not in the position to receive, some of these things. And so I have to be mindful of that. And I don't do it carelessly, but I think it can be done with joy, and something that you really raised for me as a practical tool. Do this with joy, do this with happiness, do this with good energy, not trying to steer or take over somebody's life, but just offering some lessons, that might fit where they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's it. And the idea for me is I'm a comedian. I'm always laughing, and there's joy, and there's room for that for all of us, right?
Yeah.
When we talk about just this past year, we're a year on COVID. I'm about to have a birthday. So
Yeah.
1 year ago, right, we were restricted, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
much has happened over that time. And people are in so many different places. They need healing, they need mental health, they need so many different things. And not just the people who are food insecure, they can't pay their bills,
That's
but
real.
some of the people who were still getting their money, right? And
Yeah.
sitting in their homes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Alone, couldn't
Mhm.
go anywhere, right? So it's just crossing all everybody,
We
right?
need
And
so
so
much. Yeah. Hmm.
I try to talk about, how do we support that? And that's what the spirituality for me is about also.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much happened. You can find some joy, and at the same time, what will support you in getting there, right? So
Yeah.
let's talk about spiritual practices. What are your spiritual practices?
Yeah.
How have you supported your people for this past year with COVID, the mask? It's just
Hmm.
so much, right?
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot of changes. For me personally, I take a timeout. I say timeout in the start of the day. I get my timeout early. I don't wait till I get in trouble. I take
Right,
20
right,
minutes.
right.
20 minutes in
Mhm,
the morning, just, sit with it,
mhm,
sit with
mhm,
silence, sit with meditation. Um,
mhm,
and it's not that I like come out of it and there's a glow, but it's like the practice. It's all in the practice. And so I'm thankful for
mhm,
that opportunity to do that early in the morning. And
mhm,
reading, been reading a
mhm,
little bit more,
mhm,
taking that time. But I've also said with our congregation, we open up a special room, right? And we don't have services where people come in, but we have
mhm,
this space where one or two people can be, and they can
mhm.
sit in this space that's called the healing ground. We've dedicated it.
Oh,
It's a new
okay.
ministry that popped up. It's healing. It's a room. We painted the walls a light blue, just offering some space and with some good books and some good things to look at in terms of the posters.
Mhm,
We've also had the community garden, so we couldn't gather, especially inside, but we
mhm,
had outdoor services, right? And
mhm,
thankfully, like no one has, contracted anything out of that. But
mhm,
it's good to see young people whose whole lives have been stunted and have been, redirected to get out in the garden and like go collect as many pecans off the ground that they can get. They were
mhm,
running
mhm,
around trying to
mhm,
get as many pecans that fell off the tree. Or,
mhm,
they saw the kale that they planted, right? In the fall. They saw that they planted it, but they got to see it grow up.
mhm,
They got to see the nature. So nature is another thing that has been with us through this pandemic and
mhm.
forever, right?
Right,
So what
right.
other connections can I draw, in my teaching to the world that's around us? And so, in as much as we can't really be with each other in the ways that we would maybe want to, like
Mhm,
draw out some connections with nature. So that's another practical from Sunday to Sunday. And I'll say this one other piece. It's the way that we end our church services, right? And this is one way
mhm,
that we've done it. And we say, since we can't, hug each other the way that
mhm,
we generally would, or we can't do all the things. We extend our hands, and I have folks extend their hands out and hold them out there for a long time until their fingers begin to tingle because it's like the blood is rushing. But then, we just say, just give yourself a hug, right? I used to think about this. How long does it take on average, the average person to get a hug in the day? Like, I don't know what it is. I used to make up stuff when I was a kid. I used to be like, people don't get a hug till 5 o'clock at night, but just in reality,
5 o'clock at night, right?
But you just have to, I do think about that, so give yourself a hug, right? There's a feeling that happens when you do that, I'm just thinking about different ways that we thought about gathering that have really made a difference this year. We have done visits. One of our church members bakes bread and delivers it to members, just to keep folks connected, to say that, look, we're still trying. We're still being a community, not just trying, but we are. We write cards. My mother is the queen of greeting cards. She's the queen of greeting cards. I mean, she used to write card after card after card. My friends in college were jealous. They were like, man, you get so many little greeting cards from your mom. But that's some stuff that we maybe used to do, or like, but now we text so much. But now if you take the time to write a card and send it, it might make a big difference in somebody's day. I'm telling you, it has for us. So those are a couple of things.
So you moved from back from New York. I mean, no, you moved back home. So your whole family is in your community, and you're there with everybody.
Well, so yeah, like my family lives about an hour away in Raleigh.
Okay.
So I was born and raised in Raleigh, about an hour, 15 minutes away. And so my sister's there, my brother's there. I'm the one that moved to Greensboro. I'm out in Greensboro. But honestly, a big decision, a part of that decision of moving back to North Carolina came because my community ties were so strong. It's like family, and that happens as you get older. If that's a blessing, I'll say it that way. It's a blessing to meet folks who are not your family, but they become your family, And so for me, I've had that experience where I've been able to meet folks that, we would go an extra mile for, each other. And so Greensboro's like that. We have an organizing community where we supported each other through many justice struggles and trying to figure out these big societal questions, but, I would say a church community, and then outside of that, we've really developed some people here who feel like family. Yeah. So yeah, moving from New York, that was a tough decision, but I came to a place that made that decision well worth it. So.
Right. I was looking at my notes and everything, and one of the things I saw that you were internationally recognized leader, right? Can you talk about some of the projects that you've done internationally?
Yeah, I would say, like, when I was younger, it all started because my oldest sister, for some reason, she had it in her mind to take her youngest brother with her to West Africa, and she was going as a teacher and an educator. And so I went with her, and we went to Ghana, we went to Benin, and we went to Togo. And my whole world was like turned. I was like, oh wow, like this is not like they have it on TV. This is not how they told me it was gonna be. I could almost see my reflection in the children's eyes, and so my sister actually said that she lost me in the like, you look like everybody else out here. But I had some really good experiences in my adulthood. The Vince Arenos Brigade. There was so much talk about Cuba, like, what Cuba is, what Cuba isn't. It was kind of bad-mouthed in the news, but I got a hold of this organization that had traveled there every single year. And so I've been 4 times myself with this brigade, and that also was a great experience in not just dealing and talking about what people talk about, but go see for yourself if you're able to, So that was another great project. We took 165 people on the 50th anniversary of the change in their society. And so we took that large group. I mentioned Barbados, where we took high schoolers with us on 2 different occasions. I went to a spiritual and cultural exchange in Bahia, Brazil, with Dr. Rachel Harding. uh, totally, again, seeing myself in the world, being able to relate with other people in those other places, it makes such a big difference, you know. It just opened me up to be like outside of what I think I have to be, you know, or like things the way that I thought the world would be. And it opened my imagination and made me such a believer. So like now, you can't tell me I can't do anything. Like, you know,
Right.
did some of those things. And so I think about, you know, travel as a major part of a young person's life if they're able to do that. And not only if you're able to make a way for somebody else to do that, I think it makes a big difference in their life. What they're able to see, smell in another place. My grandmother used to say, everybody should go see a different kind of tree every now and again. That means you got to get out of your area, get out of your region, and go see a place where things are different. And so, yeah, those are some of the experiences. Definitely took one adventure with one of my best friends. Dante went to Belize, and we saw some ancient ruins. We were, you know, just in it with the people on the fish fry. Like memories are flooding me now.
Right, a different. Yeah.
But every trip, I will say this: every trip had a purpose and a meaning, and we were intentional about that. You know, and we always tried to include somebody other than ourselves on the trips. Like we tried to include, like when we came back, report back, you know, share something from that trip that means something to you.
Yeah, it's like the more experiences you had, they open you up and your perspectives are different. And then you can bring something back to share from a different perspective. I'm sure with all the different places that you travel, you know, you came back with a different perspective. And how do you have that work in your life and here?
Yeah. We say be internationally conscious, but domestically aware. That's one phrase. Be conscious of the whole world. Be conscious that there's a whole nother world out there outside of your kind of local representation. But at the same time, you got to act where you are, right? I'm in a particular zip code right now. I'm in, you know, my zip code. So I got to act here, you know, but I know about the world around me. I read the news. I try to stay in tune with some of the things that are happening. And I take those experiences from those other places and I bring it back. Like if I just kept it for me in my little notebook, like, you know, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to that opportunity that was made available. I didn't make that opportunity myself. You know, all the opportunities that I have, I know come from my community. It comes from people that are around me that believed in not only me, but believed in the opportunity for me. And so like, I feel like I have a responsibility and taking advantage of that. Yeah.
So I met you in the Emerging Leaders group with Chelsea and Michael, right? It's an interesting group. What would you say is the focus of the group and some perspective on what we do as we meet and what we're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, I would say like global connections comes to my mind. You know, global connections, being able to literally log on and be in touch in voice. Like we're talking just like me and you to people that are in other regions of the world. And that alone is a gift, right? But then number two, we talk about real important themes. And you realize that no matter where you are in the world, that, you know, the impact of what's happening right now is affecting everybody. And you can find some similarities where you thought it would have been different, you know, and then we get to learn from, you know, people's special gifts, right? I did a presentation one week. You did a presentation. Some other folks did a presentation from another side of the world. And it just kind of was like like, whoa, hold on. We are all connected. And what I do actually does make a difference across the pond, you know, whatever.
Right.
How I feel like somebody else cares about that, you know, all of that. It makes a huge difference. And I just think that that's something important that I want to keep my mind on. Like every week when we're able to show up.
Big things they tackle, right? Big things, right? But at the same time, it's a great group where we can come down to a level where we are communicating with each other and laughing with each other. We did that great exercise where we couldn't talk to each other, which was a powerful thing where we just could not talk use words, right? And there
Yeah.
was so much connection that happened there. But it's an interesting group because they tackle big projects and at the same time,
Reverend G, that was
sometimes it's
hard.
like, yeah.
That was hard just to look, just look,
No.
you
And
know.
not say a word, right?
Yeah, the
But
instincts like kick in real quick. Like I want to say something. Like this feels
yeah,
almost rude, but it's like, but you still
there's
able to
nothing I
communicate
can
without it.
say, right? So we're almost coming to an end, and I always give people an opportunity to talk about the three top spiritual practices because um, as I spoke earlier, it's about creating your own spiritual toolkit, right? And what practices you put in there are personal and particular to you. So when we share some of the different practices that mean the most to us, people can take them, use some of them. And I've learned some really great new practices just by talking to everyday people on the show.
What I'll
Mhm.
share are my top three.
Okay.
Um, One for sure is meditation,
Mm.
and being in meditation with a community has made a difference.
Mm.
So over
Yeah.
Zoom, I log in the morning,
Mhm.
8:30. You know, everybody's on there, but we meditate together. You know, and
Mhm.
it's over Zoom. That's one meditation. However it shows up for you, meditation.
Mm.
Another practice for me is actually having a phrase. Right, when I was younger, it was be gentle to yourself. I was so hard on myself, but I would say
Mm.
be gentle to yourself 100 times, 100 over and over and over and over and over and over again. And after a
Mhm.
while, I got out of that bad habit of being so hard and so critical on myself.
Mhm.
You know, it still comes up, but that's
Mhm.
one way I use as a spiritual practice to say, you know, we can change it. You know.
Mhm.
And then one of my last spiritual practices, me and you actually did this together, taking time doing something that we always do, like washing my hands, right? When I wash
Mm.
my hands, I think about what am I
Mm.
washing off? You know, do it
Mm.
slowly. Like look at
Mm.
all the lines on your hand. Like
Yeah,
each of
right.
them can deserve some attention, you know? So if you
Mm.
had the opportunity to wash your hands and look at them and say, "Oh wow,
Mm.
that's cool," you know, and but take that time. Since we're washing our hands so much, make it a
Mm.
spiritual practice. Since we walk so much, make it a
Mhm.
spiritual practice. There's a
Mm.
book called Spiritual Literacy, which is amazing. It helps make and turn your world into a spiritual world. It doesn't just let
Mm.
any act just fall by the wayside or be in vain. Like everything
Mhm.
is a spiritual act.
Everything.
Yeah, washing
Mm.
dishes, practicing the presence
Mhm.
of spirit when you wash your dishes, all of that. All those are spiritual practices that have really done me well. And I can't wait to listen to more of your episodes so I can learn from some other
More,
people.
because that's right. It reminds me of mindfulness, and that's what you're saying. Anything we do can become a spiritual practice. In the whole idea of mindfulness, mindfully wash your hands, as you were saying, right? All the things that we do are like mindfulness practices that really can work.
Hmm.
So I'm so glad that you were able to join me tonight.
Hmm.
And yeah, any last words you want to leave?
I'm thankful for you.
I'm
For
thankful for
real.
you too,
For real.
right?
I thank you for asking me. You didn't have to ask me. You didn't have to open up your platform, but you give an opportunity, and I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that you care about people, and that's the
Mm,
biggest thing. That you're doing this out of a love that you have for the people that you've encountered, and even reaching out beyond the people that you know. And so I just salute you. I say thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity for me to be able to speak with you. So I just want to stay in fellowship with you and see and watch you journey and watch your star shoot across the sky all the more. I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, well, great. Thank you. And thank you for coming on the show. And I'll definitely be in touch and we'll do some more things together.
All right. Sounds
All
good to me.
right. All right. Have a great week.
All right. Peace.
Peace. Well, thank you for joining me tonight and Pastor West. I am Reverend Grenetta Mason, Reverend G. And you can find me on Instagram as Rev Grenetta and on Facebook and YouTube as Reverend Grenetta Mason. I'd like to invite you to join me here every Monday night from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on WEMS Radio with Spiritual Conversations. And tonight, I'd just like to leave you with one thought. How are you taking care of yourself and loving yourself? It's Reverend G, and I will see you next week. Have a great, great week.